Ian Bauer and I will be out in Missoula, Montana in 2 weeks in federal court fighting the NCAA to get our client, former Olympia high school basketball player, now Montana basketball player, an opportunity for one more year so that he can take advantage of the opportunities which this new era of NIL allows.
This new era of NIL recognizes what anybody paying attention to college sports over the last decades have known, that the NCAA has spent decades making piles upon piles upon piles of money on the backs of so-called student athletes. It's been a farce. It continues to be. And the NCAA has been applying its rules in the most arbitrary and capricious manner possible.
What does that mean?
That's a legal term. From a legal perspective, what it means is the rules don't make any sense as they're being applied from one person to the next and to the next. Different rules apply to different people. And there's no meaningful rationale as to why some people get that extra year of eligibility that our client is asking for and others do not.
So the rules should apply the same to everybody, and it should be opened up to allow student athletes the opportunity to maximize their college athletic opportunities that exist. You know, for anybody who's my age or even Ian's age, we were in a time, say in the mid-1980s into the 1990s, where you're sitting there with kids scrapping, selling shoes. So their Nike shoes that they got for football, for example, to pay their phone bills. This is a time when they would put in between 40 and 80 hours a week on college athletics, doing their best to be students and athletes. And of course, all they were getting, and I'm going to say all that they were getting, because it was tuition, room and board, which is a tiny, infinitesimally small fraction of the value that they bring to the sport, right?
Absolutely. And we saw it even in the 1990s when I was a Division III college soccer player. The amount of time that we spent competing on the field, training, it was extensive. And when you look at the value that in major revenue sports like basketball, like football in Division I, the idea that anything is remotely comparable to those experiences in Division I is frankly outrageous. And so that's where we see the NCAA treating people differently. They want to treat, Division I as being the same as Division II and Division III, but different from junior college, which makes no sense whatsoever when you're looking at these major revenue sports. All anybody has to do in early March of any given year is turn on ESPN, and it's wall-to-wall coverage about the NCAA basketball tournament. March Madness, the biggest, it's an event that it has its own, gravity in the space of the college and American sports landscape because of how big a deal it is. And the idea that the NCAA is going to walk in and try and compare apples and oranges as if they're the same thing is simply ludicrous. They're doing it over and over again as to our client and across the country.
Of course, think for a second about what a farce this has always been, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for an activity that created billions or creates billions now, created hundreds of millions back in the 1980s, whatever it was. If you were a student athlete playing college football or girls basketball or whatever it was, you couldn't hold a job.
Mm-hmm.
You worked between 48 and 80 hours a week. Massive revenue was being generated. It's certainly by basketball and football. They couldn't get anything but their room and board and tuition. If you were an 18-year-old singer who's a wonderful singer, well, let's just take a Charlie Puth or somebody when he pops out on the internet. He could make tens of millions or whatever amounts of money that he could generate being a singer, and yet the quarterback for the University of Washington or University of Southern California could make nothing other than room and board. That was the absurdity that always existed. And that's what the lawsuits that have opened up, the antitrust lawsuits against the NCAA have opened up opportunities now for these athletes, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there was a point in time when any one of us could go down to the video game store. Now you download it on your Xbox or what have you, and you would play video games that use the name, or not the name, but the image, the likeness, the number of these athletes. And where you have universities, you have the NCAA that is literally making millions and billions of dollars trading in on the sweat equity of these athletes.
that was the absurdity. If you're a movie star or a
Mhm.
18-year-old singer, you could generate millions of dollars or even
Mhm.
hundreds of thousands of dollars, whatever it was. If you're a student athlete, you couldn't. That's been changed. That's been opened up now under the NIL rules. Of course, now the problem is that the NCAA is allowing some players to have extra years, recognizing that there was a pandemic problem, that there was this kind of transition into the NIL time period, and then it's denying others. I mean, it's denied our client that right.
Well, yeah, and it's granting waivers, it's granting additional years of eligibility to people because of their personal circumstances, but without any guidance whatsoever as to what qualifies as for that personal exemption. And so when they step in and say, "Well, your circumstances are sufficient, but yours are not," what's the guiding principle? The reality is there isn't one, and the NCAA is just arbitrarily granting additional eligibility to some people and not others. That's grossly unfair. It's not legal under the law.
And it's fascinating, right, in this time period because you have some players who are wonderful, valuable college athletes, but who probably won't make it at the next level. Certainly in the NBA, it's very difficult to get there, but you might have the opportunity at the collegiate level to make a lot of money. I know that we saw that a few years ago at Gonzaga, right?
Mhm,
Player who wasn't drafted, but when he was at Gonzaga was making what he should have been making, which was a very good money,
mhm.
making his contributions to Gonzaga. Well, we have the same situation here with a client who has the opportunity to do really well with his contributions he makes to the University of Montana, Missoula. He may not have an opportunity to play pro, certainly not at the level that he's making money here.
It isn't just that. That is an important piece of it, but he and countless other collegiate athletes also want to make good on the NCAA's promise to them of an education and the educational support that comes with being at a major institution. And so this when you have situations where, like our client, the circumstances surrounding the pandemic or their individual circumstances have put a burden on their ability to pursue the education that they're entitled to, that they've applied for, that they've worked for, being able to finish that education, to pursue that education, and not just be an athlete is part of the promise of the NCAA for decades. And it's what they always tried to say was the real issues. Well, these are student athletes. They're not just athletes, which has always been a farce. But now when you have a student who says, I want to continue to compete, I want to continue to pursue my education, and because of my personal circumstances, I wasn't able to meaningfully do that before, they're saying no, and for no good reason whatsoever.
So now we're talking about men's basketball,
Mhm.
but think for a minute about women's college sports because women don't have the same opportunity for professional payouts
Mhm.
like some of the men do in their sports, right? So we think about this because my family's huge supporters of University of Washington softball team over the years. And you think, well, gosh, they don't have a major league baseball to go to. They don't have a double A, a triple A, any type of, or very few opportunities like that. Think of the importance that a sixth year student athlete who went through the pandemic and lost time or lost opportunities, just think about how important that is for them because they might be able to make really good money under the University of Washington softball program or Alabama's or anybody else's. If they're denied that opportunity by just an NCAA, which makes randomized decisions based on whatever preferential thing they've got going, how devastating that might be to a student there.
Certainly, it's devastating as to their income. It's devastating as to their ability to continue to pursue higher level education. And again, without any kind of guiding principle behind the decisions that are being made, other than the arbitrary whims of the NCAA itself, it simply isn't legal.
And there's so much power vested in the NCAA. It dominates the marketplace, right? And that's why we are using antitrust laws out in federal court in Missoula, Montana. Ian and Nick Gillen and I will be out there in 2 weeks facing the NCAA and its national powerhouse law firm that they've hired to come in on it. And we expect to win, right?
Go Bears.